How fasting strengthens us spiritually, self-control, and discipline. Explanation: fasting is a spiritual training in self-denial. It teaches us to control immediate desires, resist impulses, and place God's will above the cravings of the flesh. Biblical basis. Paul says, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 25. Just as an athlete disciplines their body to win, the Christian disciplines himself spiritually to please God. Result: this practice develops inner strength that carries over into other areas of life: greater focus, emotional resilience, and firmness against temptation. Dependence on God. Explanation: when we fast, we are reminded that the true source of life is not physical food, but God Himself. This leads us to seek Him for provision, guidance, and strength. Biblical basis. Jesus declared, "Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Matthew 4, verse 4. Result: fasting realigns our hearts to trust more in the Lord than in our own strength or resources. We begin to depend on the spiritual provision that comes from above. Breaking spiritual chains. Explanation: there are spiritual prisons that can only be broken through deep consecration. Fasting is like a targeted strike against those chains. Biblical basis. Isaiah 58, verse 6 says, "Is not this the kind of fasting I had chosen? To loose the chains of injustice, untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke." Result: fasting, when paired with prayer, can bring freedom from addictions, sinful patterns, and demonic oppression, both in the life of the one fasting and in the lives of others. Renewing the mind. Explanation: fasting reduces distractions and sharpens spiritual clarity. With our minds more focused on God, we can perceive His voice and direction more clearly. Biblical basis. Romans 12, verse 2 calls us to not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Result: our thoughts are purified, anxiety fades, and faith grows, because our minds are being fed with God's truth rather than the noise of the world. How fasting makes us more sensitive to the spiritual realm. Spiritual clarity. Explanation: when we fast, we strip away or reduce the noise and distractions of daily life. This creates space for our minds and spirits to tune into God's voice. Biblical basis. In Acts 13, verse 2, the church in Antioch was worshiping the Lord and fasting when the Holy Spirit spoke, giving specific instructions to send Barnabas and Saul. Result: it becomes easier to discern whether a prompting comes from God, from our flesh, or from the enemy. It's like cleaning a window so you can see through it more clearly. Sensitivity to God's voice. Explanation: fasting creates an inner environment of stillness. The soul stops shouting so loudly, and the spirit has more freedom to hear and respond to the Lord. Biblical basis. Elijah, weary and discouraged, heard a gentle whisper from God on Mount Horeb. 1 Kings 19, verse 12. That kind of perception requires a quiet heart. Result: we begin to recognize the presence and guidance of the Holy Spirit even in the subtle details of daily life. Exposing the enemy. Explanation: when our spirit is strengthened and aligned with God, we can detect spiritual traps before they ensnare us. Biblical basis. In Daniel 10, during a fast, Daniel received revelations about unseen spiritual battles and angelic messages concerning the future. Result: we gain spiritual discernment to spot attacks, deceptions, and temptations, avoiding defeat and walking in victory. Deepening prayer. Explanation: fasting and prayer go hand in hand. The act of fasting adds spiritual weight to our prayers, making them more fervent and focused. Biblical basis. In Mark 9, verse 29, Jesus said that certain evil spirits come out only through prayer and fasting. Result: our prayers become more aligned with God's will and more effective in spiritual warfare. How fasting strengthens us to win spiritual battles. Total submission to God. Explanation: fasting is a tangible way to show that we depend on God more than physical food. It strengthens our complete surrender to Him. Biblical basis. James 4, verse 7 says, "Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." Fasting is a powerful form of submission. Result: When we are fully surrendered, the enemy loses ground in our lives, and our decisions begin to reflect God's will. Strength to resist temptation. Explanation: fasting strengthens the spirit to withstand the pressures of the flesh. It trains us to say no to immediate impulses. Biblical basis. After 40 days of fasting, Jesus faced Satan in the wilderness and overcame every temptation. Matthew 4 verses 1 to 11. Result: believers become more steadfast in the face of temptation, no longer driven by emotional impulses or fleeting desires. Breaking spiritual strongholds. Explanation: certain patterns of sin, oppression, or generational curses can only be broken through prayer accompanied by fasting, which demonstrates deep intensity and surrender in seeking deliverance. Biblical basis. Isaiah 58 verse 6 speaks of the fast God chooses to loose the chains of injustice, untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Result: fasting becomes a weapon to destroy spiritual bonds and cut off persistent evil influences. Renewed faith and courage. Explanation: in fasting, we are reminded of God's greatness and the fact that He fights our battles. This renews our confidence and spiritual boldness. Biblical basis. In 2 Chronicles 20, King Jehoshaphat proclaimed a fast throughout Judah in the face of an impossible war. God gave them a supernatural victory, without them even having to fight physically. Result: we face challenges with renewed faith and supernatural courage, trusting in God's intervention. Practical results of fasting. When we fast with purpose and faith, we see tangible results. Greater spiritual discernment. Wiser decisions aligned with God's will. Increased spiritual authority, more effective prayers and intercession. Inner freedom, breaking addictions, emotional chains, and spiritual bondage. Deep communion with God, an intimacy that transforms our lives and fills us with peace and joy. Final call to action. If you feel like your spiritual life has grown dim, if you realize you've been fighting battles but not winning, maybe it's time to seek God with greater intensity. Fasting doesn't change God, it changes you. It tunes your ear to hear heaven, strengthens your spirit, and gives you weapons to win in the spiritual realm. Start today. Set aside time. Close the door to your room. Pray, fast, and you will see the mighty hand of God move in your life. Share this message with others today, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.